Hello Swifties, welcome back to the couch this time. I would say Happy New Year, but I already did a video last week where I ranked my favorite books, and that was all fun and games, except I didn't have much fun. I was having a very hard time trying to pick a favorite. But anyway, when I uploaded it, I realized I did not say anything about the books, the contents of the books, the reasons they were my favorites. I was just focused on ranking them and failing miserably. So I figured I would do another video in which I actually tell you why these books are my favorites. I have narrowed down the list to 10 this time. So I do have a top 10, but the order I will be showing you them in will be strictly alphabetical. There's no favorite here. If you want to see me try to decide which one is my favorite, watch that other video. I couldn't do it. Spoiler alert, I couldn't. So I'm gonna go over the 10 best books that I read in 2022. Let's do it. First up, The End We Start From by Megan Hunter. The cover is gorgeous. Look at that. I did talk about this one a little bit in the ranking video, and I did also talk about this one a lot in my 5-star read video. I don't know, I'll put it up here. This book is about a mother and her baby trying to survive the apocalypse. London has flooded, and that is all we know. The thing is, when I heard about the concept of this book, I thought that this would be like a 300-page novel written pretty straight to the point, right? I didn't really expect to find this. It's literally every page is just really short paragraphs, and it's only 127 pages, and every line, there aren't many lines, but they hit. Every single one of them hits. The bond that this mom has with her baby is so sweet, and I'm not normally like a big family person, but this just got to me. Obviously, I read this because Jodie Comer is going to star in the movie that's coming out about it. They've already wrapped, so I think the movie will be coming out like soon-ish. Don't quote me on that, but I'm very excited for that too. I will read you a little quote from each of these, just to give you a sense of like what's going on in here. A secret. I thought having a baby would stop the fear. When I was a child, my mother told me that she would die for me, of course. I asked her all the time, tested her. The fear of ending woke me up. It choked me. It rendered me incapable. I thought a baby would stop it, give me something to die for. And that is one entire scene. That is what the whole book is like. I don't really want to tell you anything else about this. This is one of those books that you just have to read. You'll finish it in a day and you'll be glad that you did. Then this is one that I finished very recently, like last week, 2 weeks ago at this point. It's Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. One of the first graphic novels that I ever read, I think. This is about Alison Bechdel and her father, who was gay, which she found out only shortly before he passed away, which was also around the time that she came out to him as a lesbian. Their relationship was complicated, to say the least. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't great. There's a lot of nuance to this relationship. I am a sucker for books that are about lesbians who have terrible relationships with their mothers. Like, that's crack to me. This one was a very nice variation on that. Although I do know that Alison Bechdel actually has written a book about her mother also, so I probably have to get my hands on that too. But yeah, no, this one was interesting. I mean, they had a lot in common. Her father obviously loved men, and there were certain things that Alison loved about men, like their clothes and stuff. She just wanted to wear nice suits and stuff, so they would go shopping together and she would give her opinion and he would really cherish her opinion because she was so interested. They have this special kind of bond over their queerness within this family, but at the same time there's a lot of resentment over the fact that her father did live a life, or his whole life. It's complicated. I think you have to read it to like fully understand the way that Alison Bechdel feels about her father. And even then, I think she herself is kind of conflicted about it too. And that's what makes it very interesting to me. I shed several tears while reading this. One of the reasons was that at one point they are out together in town and they see a butch woman, and Alison is like 10 at this point, I don't know. She sees this butch woman and she's like, oh my god, women can dress in men's clothes? And her dad looks at her looking and he's like, is that what you want to look like? And she's like, no, because she's, you know, put on the spot, but like he knows, he just knows. And then on the next page, she finds a photograph of him when he was younger, and she has this picture of herself when she was about the same age, where they look eerily similar. And she talks about how they are basically like a translation of each other. It made me tear up while I was reading it on the train, so that was embarrassing. Next up is Homegoing, which was one of the first books that I read last year, so I don't remember all too much of it, but I did annotate it, so that's good. It starts out about two sisters in Ghana. One of them is sold into slavery, the other is not. So from then on, it splits up into the offspring of the sister that was taken to America and the sister that stayed in Ghana. And we follow these two separate family lines through the 1800s until now. Is that how far you get in 9 generations? There's no years in it, but like, you know, when the slave trade was going on. I thought this was one of the most interesting books I've read, maybe. In a long time. I think the concept is fantastic. Having two branches of the same family tree continue in such a different way, and they do kind of keep coming back to each other, and it was just so extremely well done. I love this. I really love this book. It's the first book that really impressed me in 2022. The passage I want to read you is a passage that really covers why this book, I guess, made such an impact on me. We believe the one who has the power. He is the one who gets to write the story. So when you study history, you must always ask yourself, whose story am I missing? Whose voice was suppressed so that this voice could come forth? Once you have figured that out, you must find that story too. From there, you begin to get a clearer and yet still imperfect picture. Obviously, history, the way history is written, is a mess. It's just very important to consider every aspect of that. I think books like this, because obviously, like when we look at history, we look at it with a more open mind, especially these days. From what I've experienced in my recent education, it's definitely a bit more open and a bit more considerate of other point of views than the white one. But I think it is also very important to have that in literature and to look at it from this century's point of view too, and to have characters reflect on it, and to have that all in the same book is just fantastic. This book is fantastic. You should read it. Next up is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and I feel like this is on everyone's favorite of the year list, as it should be. It's getting really dark. Should I do something about that? I think we're good for now. Anyways, this book is the memoir of Carmen Maria Machado, who was in an abusive relationship with another woman. It talks a lot about how abuse is hard to speak up about in general, but it's especially a taboo within queer culture, because lesbians are kind of trying to hold up the utopia of a world without men being this like fantastic, wonderful place where nothing can go wrong. And then it's also about how harmful that is, because now people who are abused in queer relationships don't get to talk about that kind of thing. It talks about it really well, and that's why everybody loves it so much. It's non-fiction, but it's some of the most beautiful prose I have ever read. That's what pretty much everyone says about it, but like, trust them, because it's true. I read this for I read Jodie Comer's favorite books video, so if you want to see more in-depth thoughts on it, you should watch that video, because I really went in-depth. I think I talked about it for like 7 minutes. So, the dream house was a haunted house. You were the sudden, inadvertent occupant of a place where bad things had happened. And then it occurs to you one day, standing in the living room, that you are this house's ghost. You are the one wandering from room to room with no purpose, gaping at the moving boxes that are never unpacked, never certain what you're supposed to do. After all, you don't need to die to leave a mark of psychic pain. If anyone is living in the dream house now, he or she might be seeing the echo of you. It's written in second person, and I have a weakness for that. Okay, I'm gonna do something about the light. Next up, Love and Other Thought Experiments. I love this book. It's really hard to explain what this book is about. I don't think I could do it, and if I could, I wouldn't want to, because I want everybody to read this without having a single clue what it's about, because it's best that way. What I will tell you is the thing that I knew about it before going into it, that it's about two girlfriends who live in a house that is old, and so they have ants in it. I'm losing you, but like, stay with me. One night, one of the girlfriends thinks that an ant has crawled into her eye. And when she tells her girlfriend tells her that's impossible. From then on, and this is what it says on the blurb, Their entire relationship is called into question. Make of that what you will, but that is just the first chapter of the book. What happens from then on, I'm not going to tell you. It is the wildest fucking ride a book has ever taken me on, and I had so much fun. The keywords for this book: ants, artificial intelligence, gay people, like a modern queer family structure, terminal illness, has to be said, space travel, and also multiple universes. It's about an ant who crawls into an eye, or not. Sure, why not? Don't question the context. She wondered if she could even be considered the same person, now that every cell in her body had been replaced more than once. It didn't seem to matter so much when the effect was growth and health, but now that shrinkage and damage were the order of events, it mattered a lot. Was it possible that her mind could escape the same process? Those connections had also been replaced, many times over, and memories, too, were different, shaded by the events that had taken place since. If you were made of remembrance and your memories changed, did you, who remembered, change too? It is called Love and Other Thought Experiments. The way it's built up is there's a thought experiment in front of every chapter, and then that chapter kind of delves into, it doesn't really delve into the thought experiments, but it's like an example of what that thought experiment might look like. So yeah, it's kind of a brainy book. It's not that hard to follow if you just go with the flow. I think you should read it. Is this okay? I still look pale as fuck. Sadly, this is the best setting, so this is just what we're gonna have to deal with today. Next one. Nobody is surprised because this is also on everybody's favorites of 2022 list. It's Our Wives Under the Sea. Yeah, no, I think at this point I don't really have to explain to you what this is about. It's about a wife who's under the sea because she's a marine biologist and she's in a submarine, but she's in there for a lot longer than she was supposed to be. So when she comes back, her wife is worried that she might not be the same as she was before she left. Without going into it too much, this is another one where you kind of just have to go with the flow, see where it takes you. But like the main attraction of this book is the romance. And I am not a romance person, but these two had my heart and soul in the palm of their hands, and I cried a lot because it's not a happy romance, it's a very sad romance, and that I love. If you also like a good tragic romance and lesbians, you will love this one. And what I love the absolute most about this book is the way that these two women talk about each other. The love between these two was tangible. It was so well written, so good. I am going to brag about it again. I actually have a signed copy of this because I got the chance to meet Julia Armfield, and I told her that this book wrecked my heart into a million pieces, and she said, I'm sorry. And I said, no, don't be. I love having my heart broken into a million pieces. And she was like, oh yeah, same. Julia Armfield, wonderful person, fantastic writer. To give you an example of the way that these women talk about each other, I am going to read a little bit that's ironic because she tells this right after explaining that it's hard to explain why you love someone because you can't make somebody love another person just by talking about them. But actually, Julia Armfield can do exactly that because that's what happened right here. The thing about Leah as I knew her was that every so often when I was pissed off and sitting on the sofa, she would grab my legs and start to pedal them, chanting Tour de France, Tour de France, until I laughed. The thing about Leah was that 9 times out of 10, she couldn't bring herself to be unkind about anyone, but then 3 times a year, she would say something so blisteringly cruel about someone we knew that she'd clap both hands through her mouth and turn in a circle as though warding off evil. At a point perhaps 6 months after we'd first started seeing each other, she read a book in which a pair of lesbians emailed each other meaningful lines of poetry, and shortly afterward she asked if this was the sort of thing we should be doing too. If you ever sent me poetry, I texted her, I will cut your tits off. And over the course of the next week and a half, she emailed me every poem from the complete works of Wilfred Owen, signing off every email with a winking face and a heart. I think you can explain very well why you love the person that you love if you do it in such detail and so lovingly. And Leah is literally one of the most lovable characters I have ever read about. Absolutely heartbreaking. Oh, also, and I think this should be said, is what Julia Armfield herself said about this book when I was at the interview with her, is that this is a book about mourning for someone who is still there. It's very much a book about grief and loss, but at the same time it's also a romance, if you like tragic romance, which I do. And then we have The Passion by Jeanette Winterson. This is one of the few Jeanette Winterson books that I don't struggle telling you what it's about. It follows two characters. The book consists of 4 parts. Wait, okay. Actually, you know what? I am struggling. It's about 2 characters, right? One of them is a chef. No, he's not a chef. He's the chicken killer in Napoleon's army, but he's like one of the cooks. The other character is a casino worker, a boy who shuffles the cards and shit like that. Or does she do the dice? No, she doesn't. Anyway, the thing is, she's not a boy, actually. Her name is Villanelle, and she dresses like a boy to work in the casino because the clientele likes it better that way. And then one night, a woman comes to her card game table. She starts calling her the Queen of Spades, and she falls head over heels in love with her. But of course she's married because it's Jeanette Winterson, so I love it here. The rest of the book is about the Napoleon, the wars that Napoleon did. So it's set in the 1800s. It's set in France, Russia, and Venice. Mostly in Venice because Villanelle lives in Venice, and Venice is portrayed as the most magical place I've ever read about that is actually real. Which is funny because I actually read another thing by Jeanette Winterson in which she says that she actually never went to Venice before she wrote this book. She just figured it would be more fun if she explained it in her own little magical way. And she did, and it worked. It's fantastic. Such a brilliant setting. This book is very much about that war, and there is some pretty like gruesome stuff in here, but also it's very short, so like none of it is in depth or anything. And for me, the main prize, obviously, was the affair with the married woman. Also, Villanelle herself was just an amazing character. I'm gonna read you a little bit that was on Villanelle's mind after she spent her first night with a married woman. Those who set sail know that things will not be the same as at home. Explorers are prepared, but for us who travel along with blood vessels, who come to the cities of the interior by chance, there is no preparation. We who are fluent find this life as a foreign language, somewhere between the swamp and the mountains, somewhere between fear and sex, somewhere between God and the devil, passion is, and the way there is sudden and the way back is worse. One of my favorite lines in fiction, maybe ever, I'm telling you stories, trust me. She keeps writing that all throughout the book, and it works so well. Next up, we have Piranesi. I kind of brushed this one off in the ranking video. I was like, oh yeah, Piranesi, it was great. And then I let another book win. I think this one is probably also a lot of people's favorite of 2022 list, and for a good reason. This book is weird. As you might be able to tell, I love a weird book, and this one is one of those. It's about a guy who lives in halls full of statues. No context given. I don't really remember what it all came down to, but I do remember thinking that it was a really good way to resolve the weird. Because normally when weird things are explained to me, I'm like, no, I didn't need an explanation for that. I would have just taken it as it was. But in this case, I like the explanation for the weird. So that's a good sign. I just don't remember it. When I finished this, I was like, I am going to get this guy tattooed on my arm because I love this book so much. And I didn't because this guy is actually not in the book. I like the way he looks, but like he doesn't represent anything that's going on in the book, except I guess he's a statue, but like, is he really? We don't know. I'm gonna read you the line that I love the most out of this book. This is actually the only line that I underlined in the whole book because I guess the prose didn't really blow me away, just the story did, but honestly that's a feat of itself because usually I'm very big on like prose. Anyway, this is a part where someone tells Piranesi that like out in the real world there's real rivers and there's real people and there's the real version of all the statues that he has. And what Piranesi says is, I don't see why you say I can only see a representation in this world. The word only suggests a relationship of inferiority. You make it sound as if the statue was somehow inferior to the thing itself. I don't see that that is the case at all. I would argue that the statue was superior to the thing itself, the statue being perfect, eternal, and not subject to decay. I really love that because I love statues. Didn't really know that when I was reading this book, but when I was in a museum full of statues in Copenhagen last summer, I realized that I really, really love sculptures. This book made me understand why. They're like a moment frozen in time and you can just look at it forever. The more realistic, the better. You can just stare at it unabashedly, unashamed. You can just stare at something, find the emotion in the thing, and just revel in it for so much longer than you could if you were looking at a real thing. Piranesi just gets that, and I love that about him. Next up is another Jeanette Winterson. It's a power book. I have raved about this book on this channel before, and I will do it again. However, I don't know how to tell you what this book is about because I don't know. Actually, I was last week years old when I found out what a power book is. I'm a 90s kid, but like I didn't know. How I could explain it best is this book is about an affair with a married woman. That's what it is. But then is it really, like, did the affair really happen? Is the affair still going on? Presumably not. Where did it happen? Maybe Paris, maybe Italy, maybe nowhere. No fucking clue. Maybe it was solely on the internet. I guess you could see it as somebody going on a search online, like a lost connection kind of thing. But really what's going on is just somebody, a woman, comparing her affair with a married woman to other romances in literature that we all know and love and hate. Here's a list of great and ruinous lovers: Lancelot and Guinevere, Romeo and Juliet, Vida and Violet, Oscar and Bosie, Burton and Taylor, and some other people that I've never heard of. And you know what? This book is just vibes. It's just gorgeous, 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 gorgeous prose. The best prose I ever read. Very Jeanette Winterson. Just vibes. Dear love, with your hair like a bonfire that somebody kicked over, red spread out, sparks flying. I don't want to conquer you, I just want to climb you. I want to climb through the fire until I am the fire. Love has got complicated, tied up with promises, bruised with plans, dogged with an ending that nobody wants, when all that love is, all what it always is that you look at me and want me and I don't turn away. Basically, Jeanette Winterson loves love, but she also thinks it is the most torturous, most violent thing in the world. And that is very prominent in most of her books, but this one in particular. She constantly compares love to death, debates which one is the stronger one out of the two. Love is terrible, but also great. Somewhere between sex and fear, passion is. Somewhere between God and the devil, passion is. Speaking of gods and devils, last one is Vagabonds. I haven't heard very many talk about this book yet. Why? Why? It probably might have something to do with the fact that this book came out in 2022. It might need a little time before people start catching on to it, but this is me pioneering this book. Everybody has to read this book. This is sort of an anthology, sort of not, about people in Lagos, Nigeria, living their lives, but there's also a lot of other stuff going on. It very much focuses on queer culture. All of the stories have a spiritual or a bit of a magical twist. And the prose, goddammit, the prose is so fucking good. I am gonna need you to read this. I dog-eat a lot in this, so it was hard for me to find one quote in particular to read you. This one comes out of a story of a girl who is possessed by the devil. The devil liked being a woman because in a woman's body it could feel the truth. The things the body did when no one was watching, the way it could swallow things, drown parts whole, hide and house people. In a woman's body, it could feel the weight of her kindness, the restraint it takes to know exactly how to raise a man's life to the ground but still choose not to. There was something delicious about being that close to being good. There's a story called After God, Fear Women. A lot of these stories have that kind of energy. They're very much about women, very much about queer women, but it's also just at the heart of it, very much about queer culture in Nigeria. I am always looking, if you have any suggestions, let me know. I'm always looking for books about queer experiences from around the world, in different time periods, whatever. I want to read more queer experiences. Bonus points if it has fantastic, brilliant, show-stopping prose. this is that. Couldn't recommend it more. There is one story in here which I also mentioned in the recent 5 stars video, but it's about a trans girl and her mother. It was so sweet. It was so wholesome. I love that one so much. There's also stories about multiple different lesbian couples. One couple has this underground lesbian bar, and in one scene a couple of American tourists comes to visit that place, and they have some very interesting commentary on what it means to be gay in a country where that's not legal. There is so much in this book, and like, it's kind of an easy thing to do when you're writing short stories, to kind of encapsulate everything. But to actually do that and to give me everything I wanted, and also so much more that I didn't even know I wanted, it's just perfect. This book is absolutely brilliant. So 10 books, 10 favorite books from 2022. Well, that I read in 2022. They weren't published in 2022, although 2 of them were, maybe 3. If you liked any of these books too, please let me know. But also let me know what your own favorite books of the year were. Dying to know. Thank you for watching this video. I have one more recommendation for you. I tell everyone to read it at the end of every single video, and it's Stonebridge Blues by Leslie Feinberg, which you can find for free, legally, in the link down below. Read that. And other than that, I hope you have a nice day. I hope you have a nice year. I hope you have a fantastic reading year. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye.